This deep dive takes us into a case from 2020. Maybe you remember it.
Yeah?
The death of George Tony Boone Jr.
Mm.
and the conviction of his girlfriend, Sarah Boone, for his murder.
Right.
It's a story that's both puzzling and heartbreaking. And today we're going to unpack not just the events, but the lasting impact this tragedy had on everyone involved.
Yeah.
We'll be doing this deep dive using an article called Flash Update, Sarah Boone's Emotional Apology at Sentencing, from the website Investor.
Okay.
It's heavy stuff,
Yeah,
but it raises important questions about justice and responsibility.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what makes this case so fascinating and disturbing
Yeah.
is how a seemingly ordinary evening between a couple
Right.
escalated into such a horrific act.
We're talking about Sarah Boone and George Boone Jr., a couple in their 40s living in Winter Park, Florida.
Right.
They were at home, and according to the article,
Okay.
spent the evening drinking and arguing. It sounds like their relationship may have been volatile, maybe even had a history of conflict.
It's important to consider that context
Yeah.
as it helps us understand the events that unfolded.
Right.
Now, during this particular argument, things took a truly horrifying turn.
Okay.
Sarah, in a fit of anger, locked George inside a suitcase.
A suitcase. That's hard to even fathom.
Yeah.
What could have possibly led to that?
It's certainly an unusual and extreme reaction,
Yeah.
and it speaks to a level of recklessness that's deeply concerning.
And here's where the details become truly chilling.
Okay.
The article mentions there's video evidence and audio recordings from that night.
Wow.
Sarah was actually recording while George was trapped inside the suitcase.
Oh, wow.
That audio evidence became central to the case. It reportedly captured George pleading for help,
Oh, yeah.
his voice muffled from inside the suitcase.
Yeah.
What's even more disturbing
Oh, my gosh.
is that you can hear Sarah on the recording laughing and mocking him.
That's just horrifying.
Knowing he's trapped and struggling to breathe and she's finding it amusing,
Yeah.
it's hard to grasp that level of detachment.
You know, this speaks to a chilling psychological phenomenon sometimes seen in abusers. A detachment from the suffering they inflict, even deriving amusement from it.
So what happened next? Did Sarah eventually let him out?
Sadly, no.
Oh,
The article states that she did eventually call 911,
okay.
but by the time help arrived, it was too late.
Oh, God.
George had suffocated inside the suitcase.
That's just tragic.
Yeah,
It sounds like an open and shut case.
right.
But I understand Sarah's defense team argued that her actions were unintentional.
Mm-hmm.
How is that possible, given the circumstances?
Well, her defense team maintained that she never intended to kill George.
Okay.
That it was a reckless act, but not a deliberate one.
Right.
However, the prosecution argued that the audio recording, along with other evidence, demonstrated a level of malice that warranted a murder charge.
Right.
And this is where the legal complexities come in.
So how did the jury interpret all of this?
The jury ultimately found Sarah guilty of second-degree murder.
And you might be wondering, how does that differ from other homicide charges?
Exactly.
I was just thinking that. Explain it to me like I'm 5.
Well, second-degree murder, unlike first-degree, implies the act wasn't premeditated, but involved a depraved mind,
Okay.
a reckless disregard for human life.
Right.
The jury essentially concluded that Sarah didn't plan to kill George,
Okay.
but her actions were so reckless that they demonstrated a callous disregard for his life,
Wow.
which is why she received a 20-year prison sentence.
20 years.
Yeah,
It's hard to imagine what must have been going through everyone's minds during that sentencing.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And this brings us to a particularly poignant moment described in the article.
Okay.
Sarah's apology to George's family during her sentencing hearing.
Okay, let's unpack that.
Yeah.
What exactly did she say? So we left off with Sarah about to address George's family. What did that look like?
The article describes it as a very emotional scene.
Yeah.
Sarah expressed deep sorrow and regret for her actions, saying she wished she could take it all back,
Wow.
that she would carry the burden of what she did for the rest of her life.
That sounds like genuine remorse.
Yeah.
But I can only imagine how George's family must have felt hearing those words,
Right.
knowing what she had done.
Absolutely. And their reactions really highlight the complexity of forgiveness
Yeah.
in such a devastating situation.
Right.
While Sarah spoke, George's mother, father, and siblings sat there, their faces etched with pain and disbelief.
Oh, wow.
It's hard to imagine the turmoil they must have felt.
To have lost their son, their brother.
Mm,
in such a horrific way, and then to hear the person responsible expressing regret,
right.
it must have felt like a punch in the gut.
It's a classic example of how words, even though spoken with genuine remorse,
Mm-hmm.
can sometimes feel inadequate in the face of profound trauma.
Did any of the family members speak directly to Sarah?
Yes, they each had their turn to address her.
Okay.
They shared their memories of George,
Right.
painting a picture of the kind and loving person he was,
Uh-huh.
the future he had been robbed of.
Hmm.
And you could feel the weight of their grief in the courtroom.
It must have been incredibly difficult for them to confront Sarah in that moment.
Oh, absolutely.
I wonder what they hoped to achieve by speaking to her directly.
I think their statements served several purposes.
Yeah.
It was a way of reclaiming George's narrative,
Mm-hmm.
of reminding everyone in that courtroom that he was more than just a victim,
Right.
more than just a name in a case file.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
To humanize him, to give voice to the life that was lost.
Exactly. And by sharing those memories,
Right.
they were also confronting Sarah with the true cost of her actions,
Mm-hmm.
the ripple effects that extended far beyond the courtroom.
It's a stark reminder that these crimes aren't just abstract violations of the law.
Yeah.
They leave behind shattered lives and a trail of unimaginable pain.
Precisely, the article goes on to describe the family's struggle
Okay.
to reconcile Sarah's apology with the reality of what she had done.
Right.
It's clear they were grappling with profound emotions,
Yeah.
trying to make sense of the senseless.
So Sarah apologized. She received a 20-year sentence. Did any sense of justice come from that?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's one that often arises in cases like this.
Right.
The legal system can provide a framework for accountability for punishment,
Mm-hmm.
but can it ever truly heal the wounds, fill the void left behind?
It seems unlikely, especially in a case as devastating as this one.
And that point was driven home by George's sister,
Okay.
who delivered one of the most striking statements.
Hmm.
She told Sarah that while she could never forgive her for taking her brother's life,
Right.
she hoped Sarah would truly understand the weight of her crime,
Uh-huh.
the irreparable damage she had caused.
That statement really struck me in the article as well.
Yeah.
It speaks to a longing for something beyond punishment, for a recognition of the profound impact of Sarah's actions.
I think you're right. It's not about vengeance.
Yeah.
It's about accountability.
Yeah.
About Sarah truly comprehending the depth of their loss.
So where does this leave everyone involved?
Right.
We have Sarah expressing remorse, serving her sentence,
Yeah.
and we have the Boone family grappling with their grief, trying to navigate a world without George.
Mm-hmm.
What do we as listeners take away from all of this? We've covered the events of that night, the evidence in the trial, and we've also explored the raw emotions that permeated the courtroom,
Right.
especially during Sarah's apology and the Boone family's heartbreaking statements.
Yeah.
But now let's shift gears a bit and unpack some of the larger questions this case raises.
Yeah. One of the most thought-provoking aspects, I think,
Mhm.
is this tension between Sarah's expressions of remorse
Yeah.
and the utterly unforgivable nature of what she did.
I agree. On one hand, you have her apologies, her tears.
Right.
We're saying she wished she could take it all back. But can words ever truly convey remorse in a situation like this?
It's a good question.
And should we even try to separate the person from their actions?
It's a question that's been debated for centuries, hasn't it?
Right.
Acknowledging remorse and the potential for rehabilitation is a cornerstone of any just system.
Yeah.
Yet there's also a need for accountability, for consequences that reflect the severity of the crime.
And in this case, Sarah received a significant consequence, a 20-year prison sentence.
Right.
But as we heard from the Boone family, no amount of punishment can truly make up for their loss.
That's the stark reality, isn't it?
Yeah.
The legal system can offer a framework for justice,
Right.
but it can't heal the wounds. It can't replace the absence left by a loved one. That journey towards healing, towards some semblance of peace,
Yeah.
is something the family must navigate on their own terms.
And that journey is undoubtedly complex.
Yeah.
The wrestling with grief, anger, confusion, trying to make sense of something that defies explanation.
What's fascinating is how this case forces us, even as listeners,
Yeah.
to confront our own beliefs
Yeah.
about forgiveness and redemption.
Right.
Should we forgive someone capable of such an act?
Mm-hmm.
Is forgiveness even possible when the pain is so profound?
Those are tough questions without easy answers. I imagine there's no one right way to feel,
Right.
no prescribed path to healing.
You're exactly right. This
Right.
case doesn't offer solutions,
Yeah.
but it serves as a powerful reminder.
Okay.
A reminder of the fragility of life, the
Mm.
lasting impact of choices,
Right.
and the complexities of being human.
It's also a reminder that behind the headlines, behind every court case,
Yeah.
there are real people whose lives are irrevocably changed.
Absolutely.
And it compels us to consider these limits of forgiveness, the nuances of justice, and the enduring power of both love and loss.
So as we conclude this deep dive,
Yeah.
I'd like to leave you with a final thought.
Okay.
How do we as individuals, as a society, balance the need for accountability with the possibility of redemption?
Hmm.
How do we find meaning, even purpose, in the face of senseless tragedy?
These are heavy questions, but ones worth pondering, perhaps by engaging with them.
Right.
By acknowledging the complexities, we can move towards a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and until next time, keep seeking knowledge and understanding.